today I'm going to talk about the vanilla web diet here, and it's just fascinating to me to be in Las Vegas and be in the middle of this craziness and try to write slides because it's really hard to concentrate around here, especially that cowboy show that was going on right now that really did my head in. I was just standing there like, okay, that's different, and there's a lack of humor somehow in this city because none of the cinemas actually showed Brokeback Mountain. Would have been an interesting juxtaposition to see what the crowd would do with that. So I'm Chris Heilmann. I'm my cards say online mythbuster or principal evangelist, depending on which I give it to. And I've been using the web for 16 years now as a developer, and I went through all the pains that you can think about. So it's a battle-hardened browser wars veteran. And that's the picture of me that you saw in the printouts. And actually, it's the picture that I saw next to the pool yesterday afternoon as well, which totally shocked me that they put my picture up there. And I thank you for being professional. In England, people would have put an hourly rates next to the picture, I'm quite sure. They also would be sitting in here with these margarita things and like, yay, party. I guess you don't, which is good. So in the last year, I had a big change in my life. And that's why I was partly shocked by that picture as well. Because I lost 45 pounds in half a year, voluntarily, by basically, I realized that when you exercise and then you eat bad things, you're actually doing and undoing continuously. Whereas if you change your lifestyle a bit and exercise, it has an effect on you. So I stopped eating carbs, I don't drink alcohol anymore, and with that and all the joy and fun leaving my life, I actually thought I had a bit of time to actually think about the internet much more. And the internet has the same problem that I used to have, which is that we have an obesity problem. And the obesity problem is that lots and lots of stuff and lots of sites in HTML5 are far too big. And we make these, we're excited about these rolling animation things. There's even online generators now for spinners. And I think whenever we show something like that to the user, we've done something wrong. It can happen, but we shouldn't make it the main experience. Like the Facebook native app on my Android, this is all I see. That's why I basically gave up on that thing. I just basically get my emails, there's an update on Facebook, and I go to Facebook on my desktop. So we should actually make sure that our stuff performs so incredibly well, because right now, as web developers, every single day people come up to us and say, like, oh, native apps are better than you guys, right? And they're not. They're actually not creative. They're not effective. They're just quick products. They're products that are built to last for a few weeks and then get replaced by the next one if you think about games. How many times have you played Angry Birds in the last month? And how big of a thing was it a year ago? So every few months a new app comes out, gets replaced with something else. So as web developers, we're in there for a longer run. So we have to make sure our things perform well. And right now we don't. This is Grolsch.com, which is a Dutch beer company, which Dutch people pronounce Grolsch, so it's a bit like having a cold. And their website is one of those like, oh, we used to have this cool flashy site that looks beautiful done in Flash, and we turned it into HTML5 because that's the new cool thing. Now we actually use jQuery and 15 other libraries, and we use a lot of CSS, a lot of images, and it clocks up at 388 requests with 24 megabytes of data for an advertising page. This is brochureware. There's nothing I can order there. There's nothing I can do with this website. It's just a beautiful TV ad, except I can't change to another channel. So why does that happen? There's a few reasons, and a lot of them are actually man-made, but one of them is actually Moore's Law. We get told by the IT industry that computers get faster and better the whole time. Everybody has a new computer all the time. We've got bigger processors, we've got bigger hard drives, we've got bigger connections. Oh wait, we don't. We have faster computers, we have better computers. What we build our websites on are beefy, cool things. This is an 8 gig RAM MacBook Air. That's cool enough. I can actually build good stuff with that. And then I send it out, and some poor guy in a university or in local government sits there with his old Windows NT box or something and gets something that doesn't work at all for them. So Moore's Law is true. Computers get faster all the time. I mean, my mobile phone is faster than the first computer that I wrote my first website on. But at the same time, our connectivity doesn't, especially in the US. In countries where they put the fiber optics in the ground like 2 years ago or 4 years ago, amazing. In Sweden, when I'm staying there, I got 100 megabit up and down for like extra $20 on top of the rent. In England, I got a 24 megabit. And here I got a SIM card, which actually is pretty good as well, but not everybody has this connectivity. So we have to think about not building what we can do with the hardware that we have, but think about what our end users have and make sure that they have a good experience no matter what. And the whole thing about the Moore's Law is getting a bit annoying as well, because what we forget about is that people hand over old hardware to other people as well. Like, I give up my old Androids, for example, to my brother or his kids and these kind of things. So just going for the bleeding edge all the time and thinking everybody does that is just a fool's errand. And it's definitely built for a different market, because now we build things for desktop, and then actually people out there use these things. They have these hypnophones that they actually just look at, and they're great things because you can actually talk to people worldwide about how hard it is to meet other people while you're not looking at the people around you. And this is just big, and it's a massive market. At the same time, it's a very annoying market because a lot of the stuff that we can do on desktop, I cannot do on mobile devices at the moment because they block me. I cannot get a call, do a call. I cannot do get the vibration alarm going. I cannot do the things that I want to do in the browser unless I go for Firefox OS. But I'm not going to talk about that today. But take a look at that. I have a phone with me as well. We bring out a new mobile phone right now that's completely web-based, so no other technology in there. And these are all open standards that other browsers can use as well. For example, the battery API is used by all other browsers, and we came up with that for that product. So people are using their phones and actually get stuck with that, and are not going to look at your stuff on the desktop if it's broken on the phone. So we have to make sure that we give people the right experience to the right device the whole time. And this is where actually the web can beat native anytime. I don't have to install an iOS app and an Android app if my HTML5 app looks good on both of them. And I don't have to wait for iOS Market to tell me, hey, you're allowed, or wait, you're not allowed, and I'm not going to tell you why. We just block your app. Here's your business model gone. So let's do the math. When I'm here and I'm with my English SIM card, internet browsing clocks down at the really cheap price of £1.50 per megabyte. And after 4 megabytes, I don't get anything anymore. And then I can send help as a text message. I want to scream help, or I want to scream and throw things at them. So if I now go back to the Grolsch side, and I think about the 23 megabyte that it has, and I go to my local supermarket that I live above in London, a bottle of Grolsch there is 105. So for loading the website, just loading the website, I could have bought 17 bottles of beer already. So, but I'm not going to buy Grolsch now anymore. That's not going to happen because you annoyed me. So, weirdly enough, nothing of that should happen anymore because the content is there, the knowledge is there. I worked for Yahoo for 6 years before I came to Mozilla. And in Yahoo in 2006, and I looked that up in Wayback Machine, we released these exceptional performance information. And that's Steve Sawdust that later on went to Google, and every single day there's new information about performance. There's performance conferences, there's performance magazines, there's performance articles, there's blogs, there's everything you can follow. We know all these things. It is very, very stupid to have 15 images when you could have one image and use a CSS sprite. It's very, very stupid to use 5 different JavaScript libraries when it could be one HTTP request. Every single HTTP request hurts you, and you have to make it faster. And we've thrown this information out for years and years, and nothing comes back. And I see these websites that are just very badly done. The Grolsch one had 388 requests on the first page. How did that even happen? How do you do 388? Like some content management systems like Drupal are very, very good at just putting a CSS for every different module on there. So we only found that Internet Explorer 6 has a bug by not loading more than 32 style sheets because of Drupal, because no normal sane person would include 32 different style sheets in one document. But if you do more than 32, Internet Explorer says, don't want that anymore, not going to show it to you. And it's just interesting that you find these bugs by people doing really bad things. So look up that performance stuff, but at the same time, something happened there. Why don't we do that? And I think it's partly really strange because our tooling is incredible as well. Like every browser comes with developer tools. We've got Microsoft gives out free tools for you to test your sites across different browsers, and virtual machines so you can test in all Windows versions and these kind of things. So the tooling that we have nowadays, if I had that in 1996, 1997 when I did my first websites, I would be on the beach by now. But all I had was an alert or a prompt or something like that. And it was always fun when you did it in a loop. And then like, okay, now I press it 600 times before I get out of this one. Or I reload my browser, which was not easy back then as well. So we have the tooling that we know where the problems occur. This is a great example of how request animation frame versus set timeout. Set timeout actually, you say do something every 200 milliseconds, but the browser doesn't do anything in these 20 milliseconds. The browser every 60 milliseconds paints a new picture. So 4 times you're actually doing nothing and the browser does it. That's why it's slow. Whereas it's faster if you use request animation frame because that ties into the browser engine. So finding these bottlenecks is completely possible nowadays. But still, we have these bottlenecks on websites and we have slow things and wonder why. Every browser comes with developer tools. Every browser is a developer tool and a display. And it's the same display that our users have, not the cooler browser that we use and our users use bad ones. So I can actually right-click anything in a page, do an inspect element, I get my CSS which is applied to it, I get my HTML to play with it, I've got a console so you can do all kind of stuff in JavaScript, and in this case I even have a responsive view, so I can say tools, web developer, okay, maybe I know it. Web developer responsive view. So I can actually take a look at this thing in different sizes, like what would it look like on a 320 phone, what did I look at in rotation mode, these kind of things. So if I now go back to that and I close that, I also have a 3D view to see how deep my DOM is. So if you wonder if your HTML is rather heavy, that's a really simple way to actually find that out. It's very funny when you go to things like Facebook and look at Facebook City, which is pretty amazing. Like, let's do that now, we have time. So inspect element, dun dun dun. All right. This is another case of web obesity where we're like, why is there so much HTML on that page? It looks very flat. Something's going wrong there. So we have these things in the browsers and you can actually do your work with that, and that's incredible nowadays. So read up on those. There's lots and lots of stuff fun to be had. The problem, I think, is that the hardcore engineering of performance, and Google is first and foremost there, they got this like weekly awesome article about performance. We're getting a bit away from the main market. Instead of just saying like, okay, why do you do these stupid things? Or why do people not learn about HTML before they start making websites? We build lots and lots of layers of extraction, like there's Grunt, there's Sass, CoffeeScript, jQuery, Node.js, PhantomJS. We put all these things in there and say like, if you use this, you're professional. And if you use this, then your website will perform. So we're basically undoing all the bad things we've done before rather than stopping people from doing stupid things, which is probably the better way of doing it because then they learn from it. In other words, why do we have these remote sensors in car bumpers to see what the distance between cars is rather than teaching people how to parallel park? Because we don't want to get sued or something like that. I don't know, there's a legal implication probably. But I think it's better to know how to park than to have this really cool car, because then you can park with a crappy one as well. Although you don't have the crappy one. I think a lot of problems are in delivery. During delivery, like when you say, like, please hide it in front of the people here. During delivery, we rush things. We have the best intentions. We architect, we come up with cool ideas, we plan our scripts, we plan our CSS, we plan our JavaScript and images, and then we actually get like, okay, you got to deliver it next week. Sorry, we had a problem. Or we run out of time, and then we just cut the testing. Like, why test it? We've got end users that can be frustrated. We don't have to do to our Q&A people there. Every time I see a Q&A person, I want to hug that person. They must have the patience of a Buddha. And they're just wonderful in breaking your stuff. So if you're annoyed with your QA guys because they find bugs, their job is to poke holes in your products. Their job is to break them so it doesn't break for the end users. Sometimes it gets weird. I remember this guy in Yahoo that basically said, like, if I move my mouse really fast up and down, then this display looks wrong. And I'm like, yeah, when I shake my laptop, it looks wrong as well. Like, what's the use case of that thing? What's going on there? But I think in delivery, we basically get rushed all the time. And I think it's time to stand up as developers and say, like, we have to have more time. And if Q&A is cut, then we're actually hurting our end users. We're not helping ourselves. Because there's no bigger lie other than like, yes, I read the terms and conditions, than, oh, we're fixing that later. We rush it right now, we do it out there, and we fix it later. That's how these products get out. I remember I built visitbritain.com, which was on Tridion, a .NET content management system with 6 figures in the price and 4 figures in the price for the training, so you understand the really expensive thing that you just bought. And I built the CSS for that. It was like 14 different templates, 250,000 pages in 23 languages. And my CSS was 300 lines. And then I left the company. A year later, I looked at it. The CSS was 27,000 lines. Because people basically did not get coached on what we've done before. And this is where maintenance comes in. So maintenance is when we hand our great ideas to people who actually are not coached on that, don't know what to do with it, and are just there to keep the thing running. It's not loved anymore. It just needs something in there. And this also means that if we give things over to our clients and we don't give them a content management system that stops them from doing stupid things, we're bringing more web obesity in there as well. The amount of people that upload PNGs as JPEGs or BMPs as JPEGs out there is just incredible. And it's very, very simple to make smaller images nowadays. So a lot of it, to me, is based on a basic misunderstanding of the web. And that is that we're not in control. You have no idea what your end users have out there. This is what you have to support. There's no things of saying like all my users have that resolution, that browser, or that thing. You can do that probably if you work on intranet applications, but then your problem is that all the browsers that you support are browsers that you wanted to take down in the garden and shoot in the head years ago. But this is what we have to support, and that's cool. I'm totally fine with that. I knew that from the very beginning that I cannot control the output of our end users, that I have to write incredibly defensive code that says like, if I can do this, okay, then I can do this. Not like do this and make it break. So you don't have to give the same experience to all of these things. That's the biggest fallacy. There's no way you can give the same experience to everything. You can send out a JPEG, that's an option, but even then you got color differences and rendering differences across different browsers. So if your thing looks the same on every device, you've done it wrong. You've built something that is not maintainable, that is not moving with the market. Because these Kindles, these Nexus 7s, these iPad 2s and these things, we never had before. And iPad is an interesting thing. A lot of designers do iPad designs with 1024 resolution, which is the resolution that it said it's going to have. And then the iPad mini came out after Apple announced that they're never going to do a 7-inch tablet because it's stupid. And the iPad mini has a smaller screen, but still a 1024 resolution. So when you do a 1024 fixed design on an iPad mini, your font is too short, too small to read. And there is no way in software to detect what is actually an iPad mini or an iPad. And that's the really, really frustrating thing about this. So make sure that you allow people to breathe, allow fonts to be bigger, allow things to go onto 2 lines rather than 1. We have no control, as I said. This was at the Olympics in London when Tim Berners-Lee basically typed in, I invented the World Wide Web because it is for everyone. And I travel worldwide and seeing kids in India learning from the internet, seeing people in Africa using their mobile phones to do micropayments to each other, seeing something like Khan Academy bringing education to people that actually couldn't afford a school, is just a gorgeous, gorgeous thing. It's an internet cafe. People go in there and learn things, where we just look at kittens and stuff. And it is for everybody, so don't block them out and don't get fixated on like a belief that print design, the way it looked, should be on screen as well. Screens are different all the time, so make sure that people can have a good experience there. Everybody on the web is also a consumer and a creator. And we forget this, like we build these systems for our users and then we just leave them alone with a content management system and they write awful, awful things. So coaching them on like what web writing means is an interesting concept as well. We've got this system called WebMaker where we talk with children and with journalists and with teachers and with people who just want to do their first websites. And we have these interactive tools for people to use web technology, for example, to remix videos online, and these kind of things. And it's incredible to go to any of these meetups. We have them all every month in all kinds of cities. If you want to see people get really excited about the web for the first time again, like you were a few years ago, these are great things to go to. And these people are out there. Not everybody is bored with the web like we are. And I think our CMS systems should make sure, CMS systems, it's already a system, our CMS should teach people how to do things right. Instead, we tell people, oh, you need a bigger picture now, because obviously if I want to get that news, I want to have that 6,000 pixel image of your dog or your food or whatever. It's nice that we have these things, it's beautiful, but the web is not television. Like, if you don't put anything in, then it gets boring anytime, no matter how many pictures you upload. So a content management system that does not optimize images after they've been uploaded, or tell people, like, do you really want to upload that 20,000 pixel image when it's just 400 pixels wide? It's probably a good idea. I love that when clients send you like images in Word documents. I once had that with a logo. They sent me like this Word document. It was like this big in the Word document. And then I right-clicked it and they just cropped it in Word. And it was actually just a screenshot of their financial software with people's credit card details and debt and everything in there. So delivery from our clients to us is always a good fun thing to do. It's the same with like right now when you have a Mac and you basically look at your Finder, you see that MacBooks out of the box are always your name and then so-and-so's MacBook. And then you just go in a hotel and see all the names and go to LinkedIn and type a few of these names in. It's awesome. You just go up to people like, say, hey, how is your company so-and-so doing? How do you know I work for them? We give so much away. So what we need to do right now, I think, is cleaning up the first generation mobile web. And this is basically when the iPhone came out, everybody said like, oh, that's the iPhone. Nobody needs anything else anymore. All the other phones are stupid and you're not swag and you're not cool if you don't have the iPhone. And that's why we build things that are only optimized for iPhone. This was at the Barcelona airport. This is how I can log in into the 15 minutes of free internet, if I know what to do. And I had to log in there. I actually found it out later on because I switched my browser to reader mode and then it was better to read. And then it actually asked me for my passport number for 15 minutes of internet access. So they really know how to do. But this is not nice. This is not a good experience. And it's so easy to read what the size of the phone is. Just do a meta viewport thing of device width and you have that problem never ever again because it actually scales to the right size of the viewport. So we have to give a good first experience, and right now we don't. So everything benefits from HTML5. HTML5 is not only for iPhone. That was the first thing that made it interesting, really, for a mass market. And they went up on stage and said, like, "Ooh, Flash is dead, and HTML5 is the future." And good, thank you. But then you should support HTML5 as well. And HTML5, everything benefits from it. Your desktop applications can do so many cool things nowadays if you just let them do it. And one example that I've done for myself the other day is this pick and chooser thing. A friend of mine asked me, like, how do I get a pixel from an image and then make a CSS from that? Because there's like, he used to use not Illustrator, but the other Adobe thing, the web thing that they just killed. And Photoshop itself doesn't do that anymore right now. So I wrote this little tool for myself to do that, and I can show you that right now here. What it does, it's generating CSS. So this here is just HTML5. It's on GitHub. It's a few lines of code really. And what I can do with this, I can take any picture and I can actually take it and drag that in there. And once I've dragged that in there, well, that one was too big. That was not a good idea. If I drag this in there right now, I can just move over it and get the pixels. When I click the pixels, then I actually get my colors down here. And once I'm ready, then I can actually get code and copy and paste my HTML. None of that had to have a server. None of that. I can host this on Dropbox. I can host this on Google Drive. I can use it on SkyDrive, I guess, as well. And you could actually copy and paste the stuff out there, and you're done with it. I can read every single pixel in a website nowadays with Canvas. And Canvas, everybody thinks it's just an output tool, but it's an input and output tool. Everything on the web is read and write. And something like that could be done by you as well in an hour. And I'm not kidding here, I can actually teach you that to do it in an hour easily. Because we have everything in the browser. And the really cool thing is now if I reload that, say my browser crashed or something like that, all my stuff is still there because I'm using local storage. I'm not just having this thing that like cleans up. So all my colors will be there next time I go to that page. It's just stored in local storage according to that domain. And these things can be very simply done nowadays. But of course, browser differences is always the big issue. People are like, oh my God, it doesn't look the same in Internet Explorer than it looks everywhere else. Yeah, that's a given. Don't care about it anymore. Test across the browsers that actually are really important to you, to your end users. Make it work well. But pixel perfection is a dream you can never, never reach. And it's actually holding us back trying to do that. Because it's not images that we put on the web. It's a living, breathing thing. I love my Kindle. I love that I can change to night mode when it's bright outside. I can change to day mode another day. I love that I can resize the font if I can't read properly enough because I'm on a train that goes like this. And the same is for the web. The end users can mess with your design any which way they want. Anyway, so make sure that your designs are flexible, that they're inviting, and not that they're fixed to something, and once when you have it translated into another language, you don't have enough space anymore. Like wonderful words, like when I flew over, it's safety belt warning sign. In German, Sicherheitsgurtleuchtanzeige, one word. So every time you get designs, translate them into German, send them back to the designer and say, like, if that fits in, we have a design, otherwise we don't. So HTML5 comes from browsers. That's what people forget a lot as well. Like in the past, you had the W3C standards, and browsers did some other things, and some of them they implemented, some of them they didn't implement. HTML5 is defined by all the browsers together. There's Chrome in there, there's Safari in there, there's Firefox in there, there's Internet Explorer in there, and there's Opera in there. We all work together on this standard. And we test it in the browsers and test it out across different browsers and then put it in. That's why that's why it's a sad thing that Opera has gone away, or gone to WebKit as well, because we don't have another engine to test standards against. It was a good business decision for them, a necessary one, but it's actually sad for me as a developer. So let's talk about what we do wrong to start web obesity. And I love these infomercials here late at night, like, oh my God, if only I didn't use the remote while I'm trying to eat stuff. It's just incredible. Like, there should be some product for that. And there's a whole list of those. There's this wonderful, like, what is it, the ode to fail. There's like a 10-minute video of just cutting things together where people get confused about it. So what do we do wrong on the web? Well, the first is what I call pestering the elderly. I'm not going to the park and go up to some grandfather sitting on a bench and say, like, let's do some CrossFit, let's do some running, let's lift some stuff. I don't do that, but I send JavaScript animations to Internet Explorer 6. That thing is retired. That thing is gone. It's sad that it's still being used by a lot of people because of EULA and all kind of stuff, but it's a sad old browser in the corner that has earned its keep, and it should be happy to go on the farm with the other browsers and play Polo or something like that. It should not be forced to run 3D animations and JavaScript things that other browsers are actually doing properly and actually can talk to the video card hardware rather than talking to the main processor. So we give far too much love to old browsers. People that are actually forced to use Internet Explorer are not used to beauty. You just confuse them when you make things pretty, because they're just used that things look horrible and just work and haven't changed in 10 years. So for new browsers, do cool stuff. For old browsers, do things that work. Don't block them out. That's the worst thing that I always see people do. Yeah, I don't give any code to Internet Explorer at all because I just have this JavaScript detection that tells people to be manly and be like professional and get a real browser and stuff. That's stupid. HTML works in all browsers. So do something that works, do a form that sends back to the server and gives another HTML page back that works in Internet Explorer 6 and everybody else. Then make it good for others. Filtering out Internet Explorer 6 is damn easy. Just put an add event listener around everything, because it doesn't do add event listener. The first add event listener or DOM content loaded will not be fired by Internet Explorer 6, so you already have that problem sorted. In CSS, you can use a media query. It doesn't do any media queries at all, so normally CSS gets applied if you put one media query around the whole block. That's basically how to do it. And it doesn't cost you anything extra or an extra fork or anything like that. The other problem that we do is browser favoritism. This is a very, very common thing, and that is one of the reasons why Opera had to ditch its own engine. Is that people just saw iPhone 5 and built iPhone 1 and built things for it, and then it did something like this. A background WebKit linear gradient from green to yellow and a color of white. So in any browser that's not WebKit based, this is a white button with white text, which is not that fascinating and actually quite confusing to people. So the way to work around that is very simple. Have a background color. That works in every browser, even in Netscape 4. And then have a WebKit linear gradient, and then have a linear gradient. That way, when the WebKit linear gradient doesn't work any longer, the other one kicks in, and the other one is the standardized one that totally works. So write defensive. Think about what can go wrong, and do the most basic thing first, not the coolest thing first, and then get frustrated when your end users don't have the browsers that you expect. JavaScript dependency is another big issue. This was the Chrome download website the other day that actually didn't work for half a day because there's Chrome download is undefined JavaScript error. So for half a day, people couldn't download Chrome, which did something probably to the statistics, but they're made up anyways. So what was going on there? This is actually a link with the href JavaScript void 0. If you do that, I come and hurt you. That shows you have no single understanding of what the web is about or what JavaScript might be about. Like, you don't need an href on a thing that is not pointing anywhere. This is not what URLs do. And a void 0 means, like, why don't you just put your JavaScript call in there when you're already doing something in there? So JavaScript is not a protocol. This is just very, very weird. And the way they had to do it was to actually say yes to the end-user license agreement. That's why they did it that way. But it hurt them now, so basically now they have a real link in there linking you to the landing page of all the downloads of Chrome. So instead of JavaScript detecting what operating system and what browser you have, they just basically, if your JavaScript fails again, you would still go to another page. And that's exactly what you should be doing. Because script is enabled. I mean, I always tell people, like, what about our end users that don't have JavaScript? And I'm like, that's no problem. You're already in La La Land, so you might as well talk to a unicorn and help you out with the rest of your project. Because just paranoid people turn off JavaScript, or people that actually are working for very, very evil companies. But Jake Archibald put it this way: all of our users have JavaScript turned off until the first script loaded and runs. So when you put 15 libraries in there and you basically wait for all of them, then you're delaying things again. JavaScript is very, very good in loading things on demand rather than like loading things up front. So your first JavaScript load should be as fast as possible and then get the rest in. Then you know JavaScript is enabled. Then you know it works. Do some testing up front. Use something like Modernizer or add supports, which is a new standard as well, to actually test if the browser can do that and then load accordingly what you need rather than everything. A big, big thing is to leave the DOM alone. The slowest thing you can do on mobile devices is do DOM manipulation. Shifting elements around, moving elements around, deleting, adding elements. Every time you do this, you hurt the browser because it has to re-render the whole tree of the document. And if it's something like Facebook, you saw that tree. That's a massive, massive document. So a big trick around this is just put a class in CSS on the parent element of it and then use CSS to access all the elements. The problem is that libraries like jQuery told us that it's really easy to manipulate the DOM and go everywhere. That's why people use it in like, use that selector, do this, that selector, do this, that selector, do this. It's the same friggin' selector. Why don't you just write your code cleaner that way? So make sure that you don't write to the DOM all the time, but only when it's necessary and very, very scarcely. So let's take a few things, look at a few things that you might not have known yet. A lot of them people might know what these already are. But it's actually quite interesting to see. I just been at PostCon and I gave a talk about CSS there, and it's amazing how many things I use daily because I'm not afraid of browsers and I don't care if Internet Explorer 6 doesn't do it because it's nice to have, not necessary. So let's take a look what we can do. So the first thing to take a look at is the pseudo selectors we have nowadays. We always had like link, hover, and visited and active for links. You know, that's the ones when you remove the underscore of the link when you hover over it. People are like, ooh, look at that! This is amazing. I once won a pitch by showing that to somebody. It was 1998 or so. But we got things like visited. We got target. This slide deck works with target. So basically, target means the element that's currently focused, and you can style that accordingly. So I've got a whole list of slide section elements here, and the target one is the one that I blow up to big screen, and the other ones I hide. So I didn't have to use any JavaScript to hide and show them. I used that with CSS, and you can do that as well. And the other good thing about target is that it becomes the URL as well. So it's bookmarkable, and it gives you the history and all these kind of things. So accessing child nodes, a lot of times we put classes all over the document, or because we want to reach different elements. So we've got this list here of 10 items, and if I go to the children, li first child, background lime, I make that green. If I do a last child here, I get the last one. If I do an nth child, then I can actually do the different children that I want to have. And it counts at 0 rather than 1, like because it's, I don't know, it's annoying. So I can do 5, I can do 3, I can do 2. I can also do odd, and I can also do even. So if you want to stripe a table, you don't have to put classes everywhere. You just do that with one selector in CSS, and you don't have extra HTML. You don't have to do anything extra. You also have this wonderful nth child 2n, so every second one, or 2n plus 1, and then you have those. So anything in the DOM actually with these child selectors is available to you. And the benefit of that one, of course, is that you can put as many elements as you want in there. So if I do an AJAX call and I would add more elements in there, the automatic highlighting would happen in the browser. I wouldn't have to re-loop over all the elements like I do in JavaScript, because the browser already does this for me in the DOM rendering every 60 milliseconds. So look at these child selectors that are really, really sweet if you do something useful with them. Styling sensible HTML. And this is where the ahref comes in from the Google example. It fascinates me how many people write 12 nested divs for a button. The reason is that Internet Explorer had a few problems with it in the past. The reason is that they're also ugly. So I've got this button here saying make me pretty. A button is there to fire a JavaScript. So if you do an ahref void 0, then you actually do a button. And you don't use the button, so I ask you why. So a button looks ugly, that's true, but you can actually style a button nowadays like you can style anything else. And we've got so many cool things in CSS in the browser that's almost Photoshop. So okay, let's make it bigger first. Font size, 40 pixels. Border, none, because the border looks awful. Then give it a background. How about a gradient? Background, linear gradient, to top. And we start from the wonderful color goldenrod to the wonderful color coffee. And if we now close this, we should have a linear gradient. Interesting? Oh, hash, hang on. Yeah, and we got a button with a gradient on it. Not pretty yet. Okay, let's give it some padding and need some breathing space. Padding, 5 pixels. 10 pixels, and we give it more breathing space. How about rounded corners? Border radius, 10 pixels. And drop shadow is another important thing. Box shadow, 4 pix, 10 pix, color 999. And we've got a button. This thing can have any text it wants in it. This thing can actually have different styles. This thing can be changed by the designer when the colors change, without having to generate thousands of new images out there. And it works like a button. It is keyboard accessible. It talks to assistive technology. It actually works with a touch interface. It works with a mouse interface. All of these things are inbuilt for us in the browsers already. We just need to grab them and play with them. If you want the gradient the other way around, just say to bottom, or do a gradient in like 45 degrees. And all these things are possible and are done for the browser for us. You don't need actually doing anything else in there. The main trick is now to actually document that somehow. And then you also have the same things that I said before, the pseudo selectors. So I can do a button hover and do the background color to white, for example. And I got my interactivity, and I'm done. And all these things are few lines of code nowadays because browsers have these in there. So don't be afraid of new browsers and actually use them. Form validation. I didn't put anything in. The browser told me, please fill out this field. This is localizable. You can put your own text in there. You can put your own messages in there. It looks different from browser to browser, yes, but this is what people are used to. So it always fascinates me when people are like, I want to make this iOS interface on the BlackBerry device because it's prettier. And you're like, this is a BlackBerry user. Why do you confuse them? Why don't you give them what they're already used to? So all you had to do form validation these days is put a required attribute on an input element. The browser would already give you that message. The form cannot be sent off. And the browser will give you that red line around it that is stylable as well. So massive form validation libraries in JavaScript are not necessary any longer because the browser does that stuff for you. You have to validate on the server anyways. Just doing JavaScript validation means I'll be in your website really soon because I know how to use curl. And I don't actually have to go through a browser. So JavaScript form validation has no security, but browser inbuilt validation has. If you don't, so you have to still do it on the server in any case. Why would you want to repeat the work twice? So forms and selectors is the other thing. So in this case, we always do input elements. We put classes on them. This is an input class of submit with a type of submit. Whereas you have a type selector. You have input type submit, and that would give you the green color here, or blue if you like blue more. And you have an input type submit tilde p that would style that text after that here. So what I could do with that as well is I can make it actually transparent and not show it. Background transparent. And then I can actually, interesting. Oh, color, not background. What am I doing? Good, color transparent. And then I can actually do that on a hover. So I copy and paste this now. Oh, which is breaking. Good. Sorry. So transparent. And then I can say an input type equals, no, an input focus. Oh, for Christ's sake, what am I doing here? Input focus. Yeah, okay, that doesn't work. Input focus to the P. Color. Let's try a black here. So if I now focus this one, this becomes black. So I could now do this as transparent. And basically only show that message when I start putting in that. Other people, jQuery plugin, extra different things. Browsers can do these kind of things. You want that smoothly, you don't want to have it like that, just put a transition on there. Say transition 1 second, and then you put it in there, and it fades in and it fades out. Browsers have these things. Use them, play with them, love them. Transforms, you can actually skew and rotate every element in the page right now. So if I rotate this 20 degrees, I have it like that. I have it 40 degrees. I can scale it to 3.5 rather than 1 and make it bigger. Again, these slide decks work with that as well. And that is hardware accelerated. Transforms run on the video hardware, not on the main processor. So if you do anything on mobile devices, transforms are always better than top and left. 3D transforms, you can put things into space. So you can actually say 40, 30, 90 degrees here, 20 degrees, and you can rotate Z 20 degrees and so on and so forth. Not that useful for a lot of stuff, but actually you can do nice little subtle things with that. For example, on my blog, I've got this sidebar that people keep emailing me about, like, how do you do that? I'm like, ooh. And it's just a CSS 3D transform with a transition, what I just showed you right now. So transitions are basically just saying the property that you want to transition, the time and the delay. So I can move this now here and it goes from red to white. And if I put a delay on there of 2 seconds, I can actually move it up there, and after 2 seconds it starts doing the change. Or not, but that might be a slide deck. But I can change anything here. I can say, for example, a width of 200 pixels to that one, and I can do a width of 500 pixels. And I roll that up, and I've got the animation going on there. Again, no JavaScript needed, no library needed, CSS in the browser, works across the browsers as well. Animations, of course, are a big thing that if you want to do something more advanced than just a transition. A transition goes from one state to another. That's the cool thing about it. You don't have to define what you want to animate. In an animation, you have to define what you want to animate. So in this case, I do a transform on the scale and on the translate, and I do it in 3 seconds, or I can actually do it in 1 second, or I can do it in 0.5 seconds and drive you crazy this way. But animations, again, are hardware accelerated. Animations actually make a lot of sense in a lot of cases to make an interface more interesting, or for a pop-up to automatically go away and these kind of things. So you don't need any JavaScript for that either nowadays. So the funny thing is that all of these things talk to each other. If you look at the standards, every CSS animation or transition fires events. So I can actually, this is an app that I've written where I needed that interface that normally would be a jQuery thing, I guess, as well. And this is all I had to do. I do a transition on from the max height of 0 to 200 pixels. And I have an add event listener on transition end that realizes which was the element that was animated and then removes it from the document. So this is the whole hide and delete thing that you would do in jQuery as well, but it's done just in JavaScript, and it works across all platforms without having to load extra libraries in. So in closing, build on what works. Put links in there, put buttons in there, put forms in there, write HTML. Don't write random stuff and then style it a lot and put a lot of libraries in to make it work. This is how we get across with all these like massive things that we have. Lack of support is an opportunity. If Internet Explorer 6 doesn't support opacity, and it doesn't, that's good. So you can actually hide something in real browsers and animate it in real browsers rather than having to animate it for everybody by using opacity. Because in Internet Explorer 6 and older, it will never be hidden anyway. So the end user will just get the thing rather than getting it smoothly fading in, which is a nice to have but not really necessary. Browser-specific code can't be trusted. Everything with a prefix will go away and will actually hurt you and will change from under you. Prefixes are there to try out things to go into the standards. And if they actually make sense, then they get into the standards. If not, then they get discarded. There's a lot of stuff that's being removed from Chrome right now because of the Safari Chrome forking thing. So a lot of websites will break because people just trusted flaky things. And you should not do that. As a good engineer, you do things that work. Know your tools. Use a mix of technologies. Like, not everything is in CSS, not everything is in JavaScript, not everything is in HTML. Hardly everything is in HTML. So JavaScript and HTML5 are like that close together. But use the right technology for the right job rather than one technology for everything, which we tend to do a lot. Ask questions. Ask the browser, can you do this? Yes, I can. Okay, here's the code. It's called an if statement. It's not hard to do, but a lot of people forget this and just throw code at browsers that cause errors. That's why you get things like the browser not being downloaded for half a day. Write as much as needed. We have this fetish of saying like, oh, good, I can do it in 3 lines of code that are completely incomprehensible or use this library and stuff. We get very excited when our engineers type less. But then when the output is out there in the end and the output hurts our end users, we didn't help anybody. I came from Perl. I can write 2 lines of code that do a lot of work that are completely incomprehensible. So don't try to outwit me here. Use what can't be taken away, don't add. Think about like, what is the main use case of that thing? What do people do? They want to send off a form. Okay, they probably need a submit button. They probably should have a way to actually submit that form when JavaScript just broke. Don't add things just for the sake of adding them, but actually remove the things that are unnecessary. And this is where the real beauty lies. A really good user interface, really good UX is annoying because as a really good UX designer, you never get thanks because nobody realizes how good your stuff is. Because good user interaction is just invisible. People are just happy using the product and never ever realize that they used it. So that's what you should strive for, not like how many animations can I throw in the face of our developers because they're pretty. Usefulness, to me, is more than consistency across browsers. If one browser supports IndexedDB and another browser doesn't, that's okay. Use IndexedDB in the browsers that support it. But don't really just say, I can't use the technology because not all browsers have it. That will never be the case that all browsers have everything the same way. This is not happening. The same way we're not going to have the same phone for everybody unless the government gives them out or something. Load only what's needed. If the thing doesn't need to be loaded up front, if the JavaScript animation is not being used on that page, then don't load that library. Load it after the user interacted with it or when the user started interacting with something. I haven't seen anybody yet do just a focus handler on the first form element and then load stuff in the background. You know, as soon as the user starts typing things into that document, he's going to spend a few seconds filling out that form. This is a few seconds that you can preload things for the next step. But you make sure that the user does something while you're actually loading stuff rather than just showing them a spinner. Be aware of the effects. Be aware of the effects of everything that you put in your page. Yes, it's beautiful that you have this animated massive header, but what does it do on a mobile phone? That's where we do responsive design very, very wrong at the moment, because people put things in there for Retina displays and then scale it down for other browsers. I don't want to use my 320 pixel Firefox OS phone and download 4 meg of header that I can never display anyways. So test the things before you do it, rather than just like bringing the effect in for the sake of the effect. A strong foundation is absolutely key. So the thing should work and should make sense, and then you can build on top of that. Think about the lowest denominator use case. What do people come for? What do people want to get out of it? And you will get more and more users if you do that. So I think it's time to jump right in and to actually start looking at standards again and start looking at what browsers can give you nowadays to make your life much easier rather than waiting for the next library to do it for you and then the library doesn't get maintained anymore a year later. Because I get weekly things that I'm working on in the working groups. There's so much stuff to come. WebRTC is basically peer-to-peer connectivity in browsers. So you can make multiplayer games that scale to millions of users. You can make things like Skype in the browser. You get user media, you can access the camera, you can access the audio and record it and do things with it, do live changes to camera access. Web activities allows you to say on a mobile phone, here's a telephone number, can you do that telephone call for me? And when they hang up, you get the duration of the call back and which number has been called. So you don't have to write functionality in that the hardware doesn't allow you to do, but you can talk to native apps and get the data back from that with a loop. You can talk to a camera app and get the image back as a file blob, for example. Web APIs in general give you access to the hardware, full access to the hardware, and there's great stuff happening there. Shadow DOM is allowing you to start to create new elements in the browser, like, for example, tab groups or, for example, like carousels that run natively in the browser and get rendered when the browser re-renders, rather than a DOM construct that is very, very slow. If you think about Shadow DOM, if you put a video in the browser, you get all these players, your controls and stuff. These are not magical creatures, these are just HTML elements. The browser generates them from the video tag. And with Shadow DOM, you could generate those kind of things for your own controls as well, so it's very powerful. WebGL, 3D animation, 3D stuff on the web, we just ported the Unreal Engine for the browser as well, so you can have 3D gaming in the browser, never on a mobile phone, but on a desktop very much. Flexbox finally allows you to do things like have 3 elements and make them use up the whole space, or do one on the top, one on the bottom, so all the things that you needed to have in Swing or in other libraries before. And ad support has been just built in Firefox nightly, and it's going to come in Chrome as well, which is basically like Modernizer, but as an API. So I can say, does Navigator support Flexbox? And then I can put my code in there, rather than just adding Flexbox and having the error with it. So these are all the cool things that are just around the corner, and this is just this week. Browsers change every 6 weeks. So if you get frustrated about something not working right now, wait a month, and you will be happy, and it will work out. There's a great resource called Can I Use, which actually gives you information about all the browsers, what they do. So for example, if I say border radius here, I can see that IE, Firefox, Chrome, Safari, and so on and so forth, and what their support is. So if you're planning a product now that comes out in a year, and you're actually using what browsers can do today, you're doing it wrong. Build for the future, don't build for today, because today is actually so fleeting, it's not even funny anymore. And that's all I had, so thank you very much.